Scooby-Doo has met a lot of iconic people and characters, especially on the series The New Scooby-Doo Movies back in the 1970s. And some of my top favorite episodes of this series have to be the Harlem Globetrotters episodes, mostly because I owned the VHS and DVD version of the 2 episodes of the 3 that we are talking about today from the New Scooby-Doo Movies. The Harlem Globetrotters is a basketball team, if you didn't know, and they had their own run of cartoons named after the team. In today's video, I'm going to be looking at the Harlem Globetrotters cartoon made in the early 1970s by Hanna-Barbera, and of course the 3 episodes that have the Harlem Globetrotters as the special guests in the New Scooby-Doo Movies from 1972. So let's sit back and look at the history and fun of when Scooby-Doo met the Harlem Globetrotters.
Don't go away! We'll be back in a moment with more exciting fun.
So back in 1970, Hanna-Barbera premiered the Harlem Globetrotters TV show as part of their Saturday morning block, which is also the first Saturday morning cartoon to feature a prominently African-American cast as the leads. Like most Hanna-Barbera series, Globetrotters would run for 16 episodes during its run on CBS, and it got a second season with 6 more, but it ultimately was canceled later in the 70s. And this series was basically just like any other type of cartoon series. Just because these guys have to do basketball does not mean every episode is going to be basketball themed. Basically, in this cartoon, the Harlem Globetrotters went around the world and did random hijinks, and eventually at the end of the episode, they ended up just playing basketball against the bad guys or the enemies of whoever. They don't even have to be a rival basketball team. They will play anybody at basketball, so they can just flex on how good they are and how much they love flexing the rules of the game. So basically each episode has to have some premise, and then in the end they just play basketball. It was their own thing. They had their own mascot dog, and they had a granny as their driver. It was kind of weird. So the original Globetrotters team in the cartoon was made up of 6 real-life team members, although the real players wouldn't voice themselves here, which makes sense considering that they weren't actors at all. They were basketball players. The Harlem Globetrotters team consists of Bobby, Curly, Geese, Meadowlark, Gip, and Pablo. And we also have the granny and their mascot Dribbles. Unfortunately, like most Hanna-Barbera series, the Harlem Globetrotters cartoon only aired a few more times as reruns in 1999 on TV Land, and then it ended, and there hasn't been any media of it released since. So let's get into one episode from the Harlem Globetrotters cartoon, season 1, episode 3, Hold That Hillbilly. Our episode begins like most Globetrotters themed episodes. This theme song is probably top 10 best theme songs. It's so catchy. You get that Globetrotters. It's just so nice. So we see the Globetrotters practicing for their upcoming game against Hillbilly Hill Stars, which is supposed to be happening that day. Then a hillbilly arrives to tell the Globetrotters that the game's canceled because of this big feud between the Flatfields and the McCoys. Average hillbilly behavior, am I right? So these Flatfields and McCoys are having this big feud, which means that this hillbilly basketball team can't make it to this shack to play the Globetrotters. Yes, this is a weird plot. So because of this, the Globetrotters decide, alright, let's fix this feud. And the only way to fix this feud is for somebody on the McCoys and somebody on the Flatfoot has to get married. So then it's like a mixture between both groups, and then the feud's gone. So that's exactly what they do. And then that's literally the whole episode. After that, the game finally happens. They actually have the basketball game. So the Flatfields team has their own rules for basketball. So because of that, they're not playing by any rules. Like, if you know basketball and you watch this, you're gonna be like, what the heck are they doing? This is not basketball. This is weird. But that's it. They play basketball. The Harlem Globetrotters barely win after the second half. They finally get that win on them, and that's the episode. Due to all of these episodes being in horrible quality on YouTube, and actually there's no actual like legal release of this anywhere. The reason being, surprisingly, is because for some reason CBS owns this series and not Warner Brothers, a very rare occurrence. And because of that, CBS doesn't want to release anything. If Warner Brothers owned this, they would have for sure released it like they did for the 1979 series, The Super Globetrotters, which is literally the Harlem Globetrotters, but they have superpowers now from this basketball satellite thing. And some of the original Globetrotters from the original cartoons stay here, and the ones that retired in real life also retired in this, so they're not in it. The art style changed a little bit, but since Warner Brothers actually owned this one, in 2015 they made a Warner Archive DVD release of the Super Globetrotters. And then in 1980, the Globetrotters came back for a whole movie, which is literally called The Harlem Globetrotters Meet Snow White, and that's basically what it sounds like. The Globetrotters somehow find their way into a mix-up with fairy tale characters, and it's really strange, but also we're here for Scooby-Doo. So let's just get into the free episodes from the new Scooby-Doo movies featuring the Harlem Globetrotters.
Today, Scooby-Doo meets the Globetrotters.
Our first episode featuring the Harlem Globetrotters is the episode called The Ghostly Creep from the Deep, which is the 12th episode of the first season of the new Scooby-Doo movies. Due to these episodes being over 40 minutes long, these are going to be very brief analysis on these episodes, but we're here for the Harlem Globetrotters, of course. So I'm going to do this episode really quickly because I got a whole video on it if you guys want to check that out. But personally, this is my least favorite one. There are definitely better episodes in the new Scooby-Doo movies, and there's definitely better episodes featuring the Harlem Globetrotters in this one. This was their first attempt at it. Of course, there's going to be mistakes, but the fact that the villain is a reskin of Redbeard from Scooby-Doo Where Are You is so lazy, because this is literally the second series of Scooby-Doo and they couldn't do a new villain. They only had like 30 episodes of Scooby-Doo in general at this point, so why can't they have a different villain? It's literally Redbeard and his cronies, but they're white now. They're just all white. That's it. There's no invisibility, there's no anything, but at least they have a villain, because some of these other episodes with the Harlem Globetrotters, it's like a bunch of objects as the villain, and we're gonna get to that later. So while traveling, the gang get lost in a swamp. There's something chasing them behind them, but that's actually the Harlem Globetrotters, and they get to meet each other after the gang crash the mystery machine into the swamp. They find this huge inn to go spend the night at, but an old man named Swampy Pete warns them to stay away from this place because of the ghost of Redbeard. Now, Swampy Pete, for some reason, loves to troll the gang, even though he's an undercover cop, which we find out in the end. Like, while the gang is just chilling in the inn, he gets his like chains out, like rattling, laughing, trying to scare them like he's the villain, even though he's an undercover cop. Of course, yeah, he wants them off because he's trying to do the case himself, but like, dude, why are you doing this? Like, you're making it seem like you're the bad guy here.
You never heard one. Besides, that was just, well, a scary noise.
Well, scary noises scare me. Me too. Because there has to be a scare to make us the scary.
Oh, come on, Curly boy. That was just your imagination.
So the gang and the Harlem Globetrotters, just while they're in, they're kind of bored, so they just play a miniature basketball game inside this inn, and it's pretty scuffed, but it's also pretty cool to see. So they all get tired and go to sleep. They want someone to stay guard if someone comes. Meanwhile, outside on his ship, Redbeard realizes someone is at the inn, so him and his crew decide to scare whoever's in the inn. So they go to the inn, they scare the gang a little bit. Redbeard has this, he has his skull, and he presses the button, all of these ghosts come out of nowhere. Ooh, very fake. A lot does happen in this episode. They find a hidden exit in the inn, which leads to a boat, which captures Saggy and Scooby in it, and they get captured by Redbeard unknowingly. Redbeard didn't even know he kidnapped them, so can you really add that to his crime? I don't really know. So they have a trail of Scooby snacks, all that. The gang go to the ship. They realize the ship is next to an oil rig, and this whole thing is a whole entire operation to get oil from the sea, and Swampy Pete is radioing someone, and in the end, Redbeard gets trapped in his crew. They all get trapped. Swampy Pete reveals himself to be the harbor patrol officer that has been after Redbeard and his gang for some time, and Scooby and the gang helped him capture them. It's revealed that Redbeard and his crew were not ghosts, but oil pirates. So, you know, they were pirates technically, But like, come on, I think you guys would have done better if you didn't try to dress up like Redbeard. So they were oil pirates in disguise in order to tap oil from the rigs. The ghost setup was to keep people away from the area while he and his crew did the dirty work. Then they all go to the Globetrotters game in the police helicopter, and the game ends with the Globetrotters winning. It's cool that we can get to see some basketball in action. And the Harlem Globetrotters in real life are of course known for their cool basketball tricks that really bend the rules of basketball, because if you don't know, basketball has some pretty strict rules and refs love to call fouls on literally anything. That's just me though, but anyway.
Hey, gang, stick around. We'll be right back with more laughs.
Today, Scooby-Doo meets the Globetrotters.
Our next episode in this trilogy of Harlem Globetrotters episodes is the Lochness Mess. Probably my second favorite of this trilogy, and definitely the most villain-packed of the 3 episodes. We have a Loch Ness Monster, the ghost of Paul Revere, the Minuteman ghost, and the Redcoat ghost. And the Loch Ness Monster is actually called a sea serpent on the Scooby-Doo wiki, but in the episode they do say it is a Loch Ness Monster, and the name of the episode also hints towards that. So the premise of the episode is the gang are in Boston to visit Shaggy's uncle Nathaniel's house, and the kids in the Harlem Globetrotters must again solve the mystery involving 3 ghosts and a sea serpent who are trying to keep everyone away from a cove that contains a sunken ship filled with gold. While the gang are traveling to Shaggy's uncle's place, they come across a smell in the distance. They go to that smell to just see that the Globetrotters are there eating some burgers and hot dogs, having a giant picnic in the Globetrotters fashion, and Shaggy invites them to stay at his uncle's place for the night. And something cool is Shaggy's uncle Nat, or Nathaniel, voiced by Lenny Leinrip, who is actually the original voice of Scrappy. For the one Scrappy fan in the audience, you know, that's pretty cool. So they all go to the place, they go to this bridge that says the bridge is out, but Shaggy couldn't hit the brakes in time because he's driving now, because who else would know how to get there? The bridge was not out. So before the gang even went to the bridge, they came across both of these specters, and so they kind of already knew what was kind of happening with all these different historic ghosts.
Maybe it's a hitchhiker
On his way to a Halloween party.
So everyone goes back to Uncle Nat's place, and he explains to them that he doesn't even know who put that bridge out sign, because he literally just made that bridge himself a few months ago, and it was actually like a tourist attraction a little bit. So he's wondering himself, who put the bridge out sign there? So Globetrotters just start chilling out, passing the ball, doing all their Globetrotter tricks to ease everyone's nerves. Shaggy and Scooby go exploring the house, and Shaggy shows Scooby all of the history of the Rogers family, as basically every single person in the Rogers family has the peach fuzz as, like, you know, the little goatee. Even the women. Like, okay, Shaggy, your family's alright. That's a cool family trait, I guess. They all look like Shaggy, so that's the cool thing about his family. We get to see what young Shaggy looks like, and Scooby gets scared of eyes moving in paintings in this little dress mannequin too. He got scared of everything. Scooby is like, in the new Scooby-Doo movies, Scooby is literally scared of everything. I know Scooby's like always scared of stuff, but like, it's like cranked up to 11. Like, he's literally, if there's a tree, he's gonna get scared of that tree. Shaggy tries to disprove that the portraits are moving. Right when he says that, one of the portraits wiggles its ears, and they decide to turn in for the night. Of course, they can't sleep, so they go grab a snack, only for Uncle Nat to reveal that their soup is soap. Later that night, the ghost of Paul Revere warns the British are coming, waking up everybody. And also the Minuteman ghost is seen on the cover of Scooby-Doo Meets the Globetrotters in a different type of art design. It shows how iconic these villains kind of are. Everyone wakes up and they hear some chattering sounds, so the rest of the gang, including the Globetrotters, go to Uncle Nat's room, and they see that Uncle Nat, Shaggy, and Scooby are quivering under the bed like the scaredy cats that they are. It turns out that the ghosts have been doing this for weeks, so I don't know why Uncle Nat still is even at this house, but I guess, you know, it's probably like a $2 million house during this time. Like, his house is massive, so I guess he's like, why would I leave? I'm rich. So then Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby draw straws, which is probably the first time I've ever seen that in Scooby-Doo, and Scooby draws the short one, so he has to stay guard. So Scooby's standing guard, doing all that. He falls asleep. He gets woken up by his scary hand, which is literally just a tree. And Scooby pulls the thing, wakes up Shaggy. So then Scooby goes, gets a snack, and when he comes back, one of the spooks sneaks in to scare them. and wakes up the gang. So then the gang and the Globetrotters try to hide, but when they do, they realize that the Minuteman ghost is in there with them. Getting separated and lost, Meadowlark gets Scooby and Shaggy to go into a secret passageway that leads them right back to the ghost. Eventually the boys find a laundry chute that just leads to Meadowlark and Curly scaring the chickens before making their way to the kitchen where Nat has made breakfast for everyone. So I guess this whole chase scene has just like lasted throughout the whole night. No one got sleep, and by the time all of this is over, it's breakfast time.
Well, howdy, nephew. I figured the smell of cooking would bring you out of hiding.
Well, we were looking for you, but all we found was the ghost.
You mean he found us?
And Scooby and Shaggy ate all the pancakes, and Uncle Nat tells them about all the fun that they can have in the area, but he also warns them about the sea serpent that's in the waters. So the gang go rent a boat, they go into the water, and the Globetrotters go skiing on some of them, which is pretty fun, while Meadowlark, Curly, and the boys go scuba diving to see where this Nessie is. All while these boat renting guys from before are watching them do this. So these guys are pretty suspicious. It's 3 of them, and there's also 3 ghosts if we're not including the sea serpent. So I think it's pretty obvious who the villains are at this point. Underwater, Scooby discovers a sunken ship, and then the sea serpent appears, and somehow Meadowlark can talk underwater enough to warn them as they fly up and get out of there. Later, Shaggy and Scooby go back to the house and they explain to the rest of the gang how scary the sea serpent was, and Uncle Nat reveals that this is the first time it's ever appeared in the day, normally sticking to night like the ghost, which has led most people to move away. And Uncle Nat said that he's been getting tempting offers to move out by those guys that we saw earlier. So I'm guessing he does want to leave, actually. So why not just sell your $500 bazillion house? So the gang don't believe any of this is real, so it's time for them to spring a trap. So they head back at nighttime on a boat to go find the sea serpent, and then the rest of the Globetrotters and Daphne and Velma stay back to guard, and they do some basketball tricks, and then the gruesome ghouls show up again. Everyone tries hiding in a cabin, but then they get themselves into more trouble. Meanwhile, the rest of the gang take a break to rest while Scooby thinks he sees something in the water, but it's just his reflection. Just in time for the serpent to finally show and chase them. Scooby flies on top of the sea serpent somehow and ends up pulling out a plug, flying both of them into the air and all over the place as the sea serpent deflates. So the sea serpent is a balloon. How does that work? How can it be underwater? I don't know, man. And while it's deflating, it literally just knocks into the ghosts, unmasking them, revealing, of course, the men from before. But we're missing a ghost. Paul Revere, out of nowhere, runs from behind the boat rental place, trying to escape, and then Curly gets a nice snipe from the back with his basketball, and they unmask him as the last guy of this group of guys. So what they were trying to do was scare away everyone so they can buy Uncle Nat's place for cheap, and they were using Nessie to find the gold that's hidden under that ship. But Uncle Nat explains to them that you guys are stupid because that was actually a movie prop of fake gold that's under there, because they're like, we saw the gold. Yeah guys, I'm sorry, but that's actually fake. It's an urban legend and they made a movie about it. Another pair of dumb villains, but you know, the costumes were better. And that's the Lochness Mess, and it's a pretty fun episode. We get some more fun with the Globetrotters, and so let's move on to the last and probably the most insane out of all of these, the mystery of Haunted Island.
Today we meet the fabulous Globetrotters.
Our episode begins when we see the gang on their way to Picnic Island, but on the way they run out of gas and decide to stop at an old shack nearby for help. Though it seems the shack is empty, they still hear a thumping noise. Inside, the Globetrotters are practicing for their upcoming game tomorrow. The gang are spooked when one of the Globetrotters breaks through the basement to where the gang are. Thinking it's their rival team, the Globetrotters and the gang start pulling on a door to see who's on the other side. So both sides team up until they fly into each other after opening the door. And I know the new Scooby-Doo movies has plenty of animation errors and mistakes, but this is ridiculous. So the gang reconnect and explain themselves.
Fellas, look who dropped in on us. Scooby-Doo and his pals.
It's our friends, the famous Harlem Globetrotters.
How you doing?
Fred decides to invite the Globetrotters to come with them for the day to relax, so they hit the road and hope that they aren't too late as the ferry to Picnic Island packs up and heads out. Then a strange pair of hands swipe away the sign and move it in front of a different ship. The gang get on that ship and realize that the ship seems to be named the Haunted Island Queen, not the Picnic Island Queen. As they set sail, Meadowlark declares himself captain and promises to get them back safely, and everyone investigates the ship. The gang find that the ship is fully in motion. There even seems to be ghost hands steering it.
It's time for all hands on deck.
Except you two.
Meanwhile, Shaggy and Scooby are making a pizza when they run into more shenanigans from whoever is controlling this ship. After the gang and the Globetrotters go over what they know so far, Meadowlark reveals a map that he found showing that they're headed to Haunted Island. Over at Haunted Island, we find two other ghost hands celebrating as the ship approaches. As the gang crash land on the island, they quickly find somewhere to stay as there is a large and spooky mansion on the island. As they enter the mansion and realize it's super dark in there, they try to find a light, and the Globetrotters see this horrible scenery.
Why do they hang things like this on the wall?
Because it's for decoration.
Why don't they decorate the wall with pretty things? Like pictures of us?
Everyone goes to find bedrooms in this mansion, while Shaggy and Scooby get grabbed by these glowing statues. Later, everyone splits into their rooms, with the Globetrotters in their own big room together, while the house literally comes to life when all the props and statues start moving around Night of the Museum style. The boys say their nightly prayers, no, I'm not joking, but a ghost still attacks them anyway. We see the Globetrotters piled into one bed as they say goodnight to each other one by one. Definitely one of the most iconic scenes in the new Scooby-Doo movies. Very funny, very memorable as well. They notice someone in bed has very cold feet and long toenails until they put two and two together and get out of there. The Globetrotters get Curly to check the bed, finding night armor that jumps out and attacks the basketball players as they fight back to discover Curly in the armor and no one else in the bed. Suddenly, the bed collapses into a trap door that leads into a library. Meanwhile, the ghosts are keeping the boys wide awake when they start seeing the very scary spooks that never get explained by the end of the episode, which I'll discuss later. Shaggy and Scooby somehow wind up outside. Meanwhile, the gang hear the noises being made by the Globetrotters and the boys and find their empty rooms. The Globetrotters are trying to find a way out of the library that they're in, as it seems that there's no exit. While outside, the boys can't seem to be heard by the rest of the gang, so Shaggy makes Scooby lift him to the balcony to try to get help, while we see more of the rushed and lazy animation as Shaggy's leg is clipping out, and there's editing notes in the corner of the scene which we shouldn't be able to see. Velma finds glowing footprints while the Globetrotters took out every book and still couldn't find an exit, but they do find glowing handprints behind some of the books. After breaking a clock that's down there with them, they find a trapdoor inside the clock and start crawling through it, while the boys get swindled from a tree and wind up tumbling right where the Globetrotters are. As the gang follows the footprints to the same area, and the gang reconvene with everyone. Then they hear more noises and realize the invisible hands and feet responsible for all this are passing by them as the gang hide in a bush. These mysterious hands and feet enter an old shack as they turn into strange cloaked figures as they enter the shack. When the gang go and investigate it, Shaggy and Scooby accidentally clog up the chimney and smoke out the group of ghosts. Of course, these villains turn out to be the Globetrotters' rival team's coaches that are making sure the Globetrotters are too tired for their game tomorrow. So how did these guys do it? Well, the gang explains that they use luminous paint and wires. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Okay, Scooby-Doo, whatever you say. As dawn approaches, the gang sees that the villain's plan worked as the Globetrotters are passed out. At the basketball game, the Globetrotters are still sleeping, with the gang trying everything to wake them up when Shaggy finally figures out to just have the Globetrotters pour ice on themselves to stay awake during the game, which works. In the end, the Globetrotters just barely win the game in the fourth quarter. And I do know a good amount of basketball, and a lot of what happens during this game would not stand in an actual basketball game. Like, you can't be throwing ice on yourselves during the game. Like, what? Like, that's okay. In the end, the gang tried to celebrate the win by getting some hot dogs, only to realize a bodiless Scooby ate them all. Of course. and that's The Mystery of Haunted Island. Probably the most random and strange episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies. Yeah, there's some crazy ones in this show, but since we don't really have a main villain like the other 2 episodes, and we have a lot of props and moving objects all the time, and when we finally see what the villains look like, they're just guys in white robes. They're not really anything special, and the invisibility aspect is pretty insane for a Scooby-Doo episode, because we don't see anything like that until What's New Scooby-Doo. But I do enjoy this episode much more than the first of these 3 episodes, and definitely it's a great watch. And that's when Scooby-Doo met the Globetrotters. Having revisited these classic episodes, I can still say that these are probably the best of the new Scooby-Doo movies. Because the new Scooby-Doo movies, let me tell you, they're not that good. Stretching out 40-minute episodes for cartoon TV, it's not that easy. Especially if you have a horrible premise and a horrible story to go off of. And a lot of these episodes do. They drag on for a long time, there's a lot of wasted stuff, but spending time with the Globetrotters is just fun. All of these characters are so unique. It was so much fun looking back at the original Globetrotters series, the Scooby-Doo collab with the Globetrotters, and the future of the Globetrotters cartoons and the actual basketball team. And I really do hope someday we can see an actual physical media release or a streaming release of the original Harlem Globetrotters, because right now we just have illegal TV footage on YouTube. And anything I missed, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. These episodes are kind of goofy, kind of strange, but it's still fun talking about them, even if it's a brief subject. So anyway guys, that'll be it for this video. Hopefully I didn't drag on for too long, and I'll see you in the next one.